Hi friends, it's Rhonda and welcome to a new video. Today I am going to do a video covering all the books on my physical TBR. And I don't know how many I have, but it's quite a bit. And originally I was going to do a just large book haul because I haven't done one I think since April or May, and I've definitely acquired a ton of books since then. But the problem is I didn't separate them from the books I have already hauled. And some of those books are mixed up with books I've already read, and they're mixed up with the other books I've already gone over in a previous book haul. So I thought the simplest thing for me to do is to just go over all the books that I have on my physical TBR. And I don't know how many I have. It is a lot. And I actually have 2 TBR carts. And then I have some stacks of books here on the floor to go over, as well as a few over here on the coffee table. So I am overflowing with books. I am not going on a book buying ban. I just need to definitely just cut back on what I am getting and focus on reading all these books. But in regards to these TBR carts, there is a method to my madness. This black one has mostly thrillers and fantasy and horror books. And then the white TBR cart has everything else, like romances, contemporary fiction, women's fiction. I think there's a historical fiction there, historical romances. So everything that's not dark and fantastical is over here. I have a lot of books to get through, so let's go ahead and get going. The first few books I want to go over. This is a book I'm currently reading called The Spell Shop. This is a cozy fantasy. I have A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. This one is kind of a dark fantasy. That is a retelling of Goose Girl. I don't know anything about that story because I've never read it, but it is a Grimm's fairy tale. And then I also have The Wren in the Holly Library by K.A. Lynn. And this one is, I believe, a fantasy romance. And then on the floor, I have a stack of books that I wanted to focus on this fall. The first one is a cozy mystery called Brood Awakening. So the next book I have is You Again by Kate Goldberg. And this one is perfect for the fall, just with all of the fall leaves. I also have The Unfortunate Side Effects of Heartbreak and Magic. And then I have the Fallcroft Ghosts by Darcy Coates, who I really enjoy Darcy Coates' books. She writes really good ghost stories. I read 2 of her books already, The Haunting of Ashburn House and Craven Manor. Both of those were really good and spooky. So if you're looking for a couple of spooky books, definitely go check those out. So next is The X-Files by Jessica Joyce. I've heard really good things about this one. A Most Agreeable Murder by Julia Seals. I think this is a historical romance with a mystery. And this is one of the newest books that I've gotten. Next is Primetime Romance by Kate Robb. She wrote This Spells Love. I think I gave that book 3 stars. It was cute and it was fine. I had a couple of problems with it, but I did kind of enjoy it. But this one reminds me of Pleasantville and a novel love story, and I really want to get to this real soon. Next up is the second book in the Finlay Donovan series called Finlay Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead. This is kind of a cozy mystery. And then I have The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. I've read one of his books before called How to Sell a Haunted House. I loved it because I loved his dark humor and just the comedy of the book. It wasn't that creepy, but it was a little bit creepy. So I do want to get to this here in the fall. So next up is a contemporary romance called The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. I've heard a lot of great things about this one. Next is another Darcy Coates book called The Haunting of Lee Harker. Next is Love in the Time of Serial Killers by Alicia Thompson. And I read another one of her books this past summer called The Art of Catching Feelings, and I love that book so much. So I wanted to read some of her backlists, and this is one of the ones I got. I also have The Nothing Man by Catherine Ryan Howard. This is a thriller, and I've heard really good things about this one as well. And then I'm really excited to read this one. It is The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young. This is a fantasy. And then I have Heaven Breakers by Sarah Wolf. This is another book on this month's TBR. I think this is like a sci-fi type fantasy. The next are a couple of books I did a soft DNF on. First is The Corpse in the Closet by Lucy Score. This is the second book in the Riley Thorne series, and I didn't DNF this because I was not loving it. I just wasn't in the mood for it. I loved the first book in the series, so I do want to get to this soon. Next is Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. I read The Love Hypothesis by her, and I really adored it. and I'm about a third of the way through this, and I'm just not into it. I'm not enjoying it. I'm not loving it. I do want to finish it because I hate DNFing books, but so far I'm not a fan of this. I don't know when I'll get to it, but I will one day. The next books I have is the ACOTAR series. I do want to read this one this month, and I'm going to try to do a reading vlog reading this entire series. So definitely subscribe if you haven't already so that you will know when I post that video. But I have ACOTAR, I have ACOMAF, I have ACOWAR, and then I have the novella A Court of Frost and Starlight, and then I have A Court of Silver Flames, which I think is everyone's favorite, and this book is so chunky. So I have the entire ACOTAR series to read. Hopefully I can get to this one by the end of the year. That is my goal. And then the other Sarah J. Maas book I have is The Assassin's Blade. I know there is a lot of talk and a little bit of a controversy on when to read this, but I'm personally going to read it first because people I know and trust have told me to read this one first so that I can understand the rest of the books better and I can get into that first book easier. Okay, so let's move on to this black card, and I'm going to just turn the camera around and go through these books quickly. Okay, so let's start with this first book. I have The Masters of Death by Olivia Blake. I have One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. I've heard wonderful things about this, and I want to read this one in October. This is a darker fantasy. I think it's a gothic fantasy, and I cannot wait to read this one. But it's book one in a duology. Then I have Wayward by Amelia Hart. Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. The Inheritance Game by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is a YA fantasy or mystery, I think. And then I have My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downing. Caraval by Stephanie Garber. The first book in the Shatter Me series by Tahira Mafi called Shatter Me. Dawn of Onyx by Kate Golden. This is another book I've heard really good things about that I'm anxious to read, and it is a fantasy romance. And then I have, this is probably one of two books that has been on my cart the longest, but it is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. And then I have One Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. The Book of Azrael by Amber V. Nicole. Okay, so let's turn this around. I'm trying to do this one-handed, but back here I have some of my horror books. I have The Haunting of Maddie Clare by Simone St. James. I love Simone St. James' book. Her books are so atmospheric. I love them so much. And then I have My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. And then back here I have another Grady Hendrix. It's the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. And then over here are my 4 Darcy Coates books, but I have The Haunting of Blackwood House, Gallow Hills, Hunted, and then this one is Where He Can't Find You. I believe this one is a YA horror, but I'm trying to read her backlist because I have enjoyed her books so much. And then here on the second shelf are a couple of YA fantasies. The first one is Belladonna. And then I have The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I think this is the first book of the series. And then I have a couple of cozy mysteries. This one is Peril in Paperback. And then I have, what is this called? Whiskers and Lies. And I just love those little kittens. And this one is by Sophie Kelly. This is What Lies in the Woods by Kate Alice Marshall. And then this one is Spells for Forgetting. It's another one by Adrienne Young. It's another one that I cannot wait to get to. The London Seance Society by Sarah Penner. Next is The Lost Apothecary, also by Sarah Penner. The Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco. I'm not sure if this is, I'm hoping this is the first book of the series, but I know she's had other fantasy series. Next is another fantasy called The Starling House by Alex E. Harrow, and I've heard this is kind of like a darker fantasy with a haunted house. I also have Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I really need to read this one soon. I've heard nothing but great things about it. Next is Dance of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. I heard this one is a really good enemies to lover romantasy, and I can't wait to get to that one. And then I have The Hurricane Wars by Thea Guanzin. I don't know much about this one. Okay, so on this bottom shelf, I have mostly thrillers and mysteries. First up is Everybody Knows by Jordan Harper. I have Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I've read books by him before and I've really enjoyed it. This is a sci-fi. I read his Wayward series. There's also a mini series based off that series that is actually really good. I have Verity by Colleen Hoover. I read my first Colleen Hoover book last month called It Ends With Us, and I really loved it. I've heard this is a little bit more darker and there's a little bit of a thrilling aspect to it, but I definitely want to read more from her. I have The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris. I've read several B.A. Paris thrillers and I've loved them all. So if you haven't checked out anything by her, definitely read her books. A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham. I've heard this one is really good, but it's Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. It's another just atmospheric thriller. And this next one I really need to get to because it has some time travel in it and I love it. But this one is Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister. And then I have a couple of Frida McFadden books. First one is Locked Door. And then I have Ward D. So on this last shelf, I have Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. I've actually started this, but I did a soft DNF on it. This is one of those books I hope to finish before the end of the year. The next one is Mick Schaefer's newest release and it's called The Lost Story. I have a cozy mystery called How to Solve Your Own Murder by Kristen Perrin. I have another Lucy Foley book called The Guest List. And this one I want to get to in October, but it's called Incidents Around the House by Josh Mallerman. This one is a cozy mystery, I think, and it's called Strange Sally Diamond by Liz Nugent. I've heard that one is actually really, really good. And then I have a couple of Ruth Ware books I haven't read yet. The It Girl and One by One, which I'll probably read one by one this winter just because it looks like there's a lot of snow. Okay, so moving on to my white TBR cart. This one again has a lot of my romances and pretty much everything else. But I have The X-Talk by Rachel Lynn Solomon. 99% Mine by Sally Thorne. Unfortunately Yours by Tessa Bailey. I think this is the second book of this little series, and I've heard the first one wasn't that good, and I should just skip that one and read this one, which is what I plan to do eventually. The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating by Christina Lauren. Off the Map by Trish Dollar. I read The Float Plan by Trish Dollar a couple of months ago and I really, really loved it. So I want to finish that series. And I can't remember if this is the second or third book. Happily Ever After by Lynn Painter. Another Colleen Hoover. This one's November 9. I plan to read this in, you guessed it, November. And then I have some Catherine Center books, who is quickly becoming one of my favorite authors. And she's also a native Houstonian, so I'm happy to support her. But this one is How to Walk Away. Then there's Things You Save in a Fire. What You Wish For. And I think those are all of the Catherine Center books that I have not read. Next is Just Haven't Met You Yet by Sophie Cousins. I read one of her books a few months ago and I loved it, so I want to read more from her. I also have This Time Next Year. That's also by her. I have 5 Years From Now by Paige Toon. In 5 Years by Rebecca Serrell. The Second Chance Year by Melissa Weisner. Not Like the Movies by Carrie Winfrey. And then in the back, so the second book that has been on my TBR cart the longest is The Nightingale by Christina Hanna. This is, in case you don't know, this is a historical fiction and it is a beast of a book, and I'm just not ready to read that yet. So these two books, this is the second book and the third book of the Dreamland Billionaire series. It's Terms and Conditions and The Final Offer. I read the first book and I think I gave it 3 stars. It was fine. These are just really thick books and I don't tend to grab super thick contemporary romances because I just don't think they should be that long. Speaking of chunky books, I have Things We Got Over, or no, Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. And then I have a YA romance called See You Yesterday by Rachel Lynn Solomon. I don't usually read YA romances just because I'm 45 years old and I'm not in that age bracket. But this one has to do with a time loop and I will read anything that has time loops. So these 3 little teeny tiny books are books that I got from Dollar Tree. In case you don't know, Dollar Tree has books and they're super tiny. But these 3 are historical romances. This one is I'm Only Wicked With You by Julie Ann Long. Duke Gone Rogue by Christy Carlisle, and I love Christy Carlisle. So if you're looking for a good historical romance author, definitely check her books out. She has quite an extensive backlist too. And then another good author is Lorraine Heath, and this one is The Duchess Hunt. Next is The Love Wager by Lynn Painter and Love Theoretically by Allie Hazelwood. So now we're on the second shelf of the white TBR cart. This one, oh gosh, these are packed in. This one is With Love from Cold War, and this is another Alicia Thompson book. I want to read this one during the holiday season. Another book I want to read during the holiday season is The Mistletoe Motive by Chloe Leese. I've heard this one was really good. And then I also have In a Holidays by Christina Lauren. I think this one has a time loop in it as well. So next I have the Love Light Farms series by BK Have It Your Way Borison. The first one is Love Light Farms, Business Casual, Mixed Signals, and then In the Weeds. And I'm not sure if I have these in order, and it doesn't matter because I will figure out the order and read them in order, which is why I haven't gotten to them yet, because I want to start with Love Light Farms first. And that one, I believe, is set at a Christmas tree farm during the holidays. Next, I have The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. Yeah, that's her name. I have The Day Shelley Woodhouse Woke Up by Laura Pearson. 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I also have Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Husband for Hire by Megan Quinn. I read The Not So Meet Cute by her and I did not love it, so I'm not anxious to get to that one. I also have The Happy Life of Isadora Bentley by Courtney Walsh. I did a soft DNF on this one. I do want to finish it before the end of the year, but I was enjoying it. It's a little bit more of a wholesome romance. Love for You Only by Monica Murphy. The Wall of Winnipeg and Me by Mariana Zapata. I should probably try and get to this this fall just because it is a sports football romance and we are in football season. Next is The Last Letter by Rebecca Yarros. And then another book by Rebecca Yarros is Things We Leave Unfinished. Okay, and then behind, so also on the second shelf and behind those other books is The Summer of Broken Rules. This is, I think, a YA romance. I've heard it's really good, so I want to read it. The Seaside Sisters by Pamela Kelly. Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Emma of 83rd Street. And The Hotel Nantucket by Ellen Hildebrand. Obviously, these are the summer romances that I have not gotten to this past summer, so I'll pick them up next summer. And then I have It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover, which is the second book in the story of Lily. And then I have The Storied Life of A.J. Fickery, which is by Gabrielle Zevin. She wrote Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow. Okay, so down on this third row of the white TBR cart, I do have a couple of summer romances, but these others are more of a fall read, so I put them on the bottom to maybe try and focus on this summer. But I do have another Ellen Hild. Oh my God, I can't get it out. Well, let's start with this one. This one is Bellwether by Susanna Kersley. I've read Susanna Kersley books before and I have loved all of them. She writes books that have time travel. Some of them are a little bit of a historical fiction as well. So if you have not read anything by her, definitely check it out. I would say start with Mariana. That one was a really, really good book. Oh my gosh, I still can't get that one out. Let's go ahead and do these. But I have Elsie Silver's newest series, and that is Wild Love and Wild Eyes. And this one came out, I want to say last week. But Elsie Silver wrote the Chestnut Spring series. I did read all of those books, and I thought they were pretty good. A little too spicy. I'm sure these are going to be super spicy too, but I do enjoy her writing and the romance. So I wanted to read that series. Okay, finally we can get this out. This is Trouble in Paradise by Ellen Hildebrand. I want to say that this is part of a series and it's not the first book, but I got it for my birthday from a friend of mine and I need to read it, but I need to get that first book. I have tried reading this author's books before, and I did not love the one I read. It had something to do with a chef who died and the women in his life go to this beach house. I don't know, it was really boring and I was hating it, so I stopped reading it. But I've heard she's really good and I want to like her, so I have 2 of her books. I'm going to start with The Hotel Nantucket, and if I like that, I'm going to get the book that goes before this one and try and read this series since I got it as a gift. Okay, let's keep going. I have another Courtney Walsh book called Can't Help Falling, and I love this one because it has fall leaves and I think it'll be a cute little fall romance to read. And from what I know about Courtney Walsh, she writes really wholesome, clean romances that don't have bad language in them. Okay, next I have another little historical romance with a murder mystery, and this is Murder in Masquerade by Mary Winters. You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hogel. I've heard this is really, really good. And then I have Love Interest by Claire Gilmore. I think this is a workplace romance. And then I have Funny Feelings by Tara DeWitt. I read my first Tara DeWitt book called Savor It this last month and did not love it, so I'm hoping this one is better. And then I have Angelica Frankenstein Makes Her Match by Sally Thorne. The Enchanting Case of Spirits by Melissa Holtz. So this next book is the first book of a series that I've heard really good things about, but it's Wolf Gone Wild by Juliet Cross. And then I have Nice Work Nor November, and I believe this is just a women's fiction, and I'm going to be reading this in November. It's probably a summer book, but it has November in it, which means it needs to be read in November. This next book is The Most Likely Club by Alyssa Friedland, and I bought this one because it takes place at a high school reunion for the class of 1997, and that is when I graduated high school, so I had to read this, and I think it will be a lot of fun to read. And then back here is the lone book, Emily Henry's The Happy Place, which I should probably put up here. This is the only Emily Henry book I have not read. It was on my TBR for August and I never got to it. This is the book that I just don't think I'm going to enjoy. It reminds me a lot of Beach Read, and I did not love Beach Read, so I have not been wanting to grab that one. So I'm just going to stick that one back here. Okay guys, these are all of the books on my physical TBR. I actually don't even know how many I have. I should probably count them. Let's see, 1, 2, 12, 15, 16, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 8, 9, 60, 61, 62, 64, 6, 7, 8, 9, 8, 1, 2, 8. 142 books. That's a lot of books. Anyway, yeah, I've got a lot of reading I need to do. So these are all the books on my physical TBR. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you've read any of these, let me know what is the book that I absolutely need to read sooner rather than later. I have a lot of great books that I want to get to. All of these books I have heard either from friends or other booktubers that they're great. Some of these are by authors I enjoy. So I have a lot of books I need to read, and I will eventually get to them all. But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. I post videos every week, and I would love for you to join my little booktube family. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.